Welcome to Invest in Yourself, where we feature entrepreneurs and enterprise leaders who feature their stories in our guest blog found on shareyourstories.online. Our guest is Don Levine, a lavender farmer who purchased 55 acres of land and started a business in agriculture, agrotourism, and product making. We're going to discuss how she has traded her 9-to-5 as a corporate leader to become a business owner with her great idea. John joins us from Mono, Ontario. Welcome.
Thanks, Trish.
You know, I'm so super excited to have you join us because I have to say that lavender is one of those plants that sort of appeals to all five senses, right? It's really quite an amazing plant.
It really is.
So tell me, how many plants does it take to create a lavender farm?
Wow. It started out with only about 130, which was our first test plot. Proof of concept was important, and now we have over 30,000.
Wow! That's a lot of plants.
It is a lot, especially in Ontario, because this isn't a native plant. And so unlike Mediterranean climates, or even in France and in Italy, where they have a lot of mechanized systems that are used to dealing with lavender as a crop, we don't have that here. We do everything by hand. Wow. So we better love it. We better love it hard because we work really hard.
Yeah, for sure. So how does the political communications planner move from a corporate 9-to-5 to deciding that you wanted to start a lavender farm and get into agriculture? That's a real paradigm shift.
It's quite a jump. Burnout? No. I'm sure that is a factor. I think, it was it's a journey, like all of these things that we go through, especially when you make big changes in your life. Yeah. But I think we have 3 young children, and we just sort of followed our spidey senses in terms of understanding what brought us joy, what we felt was worthwhile in terms of working those hours for. When things take you away from your family and the people you love, you start to question whether or not what you're doing is a worthwhile trade-off. Right. And so we wanted to just make sure that our earth time here was a worthwhile trade-off. If we're working hard for something, we want it to be something we feel really proud that we're doing. We want it to feel like, the literal dirt under our fingernails is something we feel really excited to share with people. And so it was very much a heart decision, which is unlike us and very much unlike political communications planning.
Yes. Yes, for sure.
Because some of it was a plan and some of it was we're not in charge of this. You've got to give a lot of that control to Mother Nature. And that is part of the personal growth element to this, for sure.
Now, one of the things that I find really intriguing is the fact that you've got this wonderful lavender farm, but you've done it as an agritourism connection.
Like that.
Well, that is part of the family. They're all part of the family.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell me, how do you connect the dots between agriculture and agritourism? Because I know that your launch is this week. You've got a short season where you try to get as many folks as possible to come and visit you on the farm. So how do you connect the dots?
Well, I think part of that trade-off in terms of what we were doing and making it worthwhile was a huge element of it for us was sharing it with people. Right. So, just feeling the way that the farm feels to us, it is a very serene place. It is healing in lots of ways. We do yoga here on the farm, and we try to cultivate that relaxing serenity. Lavender is obviously a great complement to that. Mm-hmm. And so while I didn't set out like this, again, this plan was not a fully formed plan to be a sort of farm destination. I was very happy working away, just doing the farming portion of it, making the products. It felt like almost like something was missing, because having that sharing element with other people is, this land doesn't belong to us. We belong to it. And living in that sort of truth element of it was vital to us. And so we just learned along the way what it means to run an agritourism business, the nuts and bolts of it in terms of ticketing and, timed ticketing to ensure that the experience is a nice one and doesn't feel busy for people. And those nuts and bolts don't feel as challenging because we feel so aligned with the vision of the farm. And I think that is, one thing that now that I've felt what it feels like to really kind of be working in alignment with sort of your bigger goals, it makes those difficult, nuts and bolts hurdles a lot easier. Sure. Yeah. And you're much more willing, I think, to learn skills that you need, right? I mean, like I'm not a web programmer. Or a graphic designer, or I'm not all of these things, these labels that we feel we need to be granted designations for. I'm just trying to run this business. And so if I don't learn how to do it, then no one's going to do it. So that's sort of been part of the journey. And actually, to be honest, politics is a great training ground for that, because a lot of the time you're thrown in the deep end with absolutely no plan, or potentially not the credentials required for the position you're in, and you sink or swim. So,
well, isn't that so true? Because nothing comes with a manual, right? I mean, unless you're buying an appliance or a car, and nothing really comes with a manual. So when we're in the life experience, you're absolutely right. Oh my goodness. You are thrown into the deep end because it's sink or swim, right?
That's right.
Now, so, that's a really wonderful analogy for entrepreneurship, because I mean, like you say, you're not going to have all the skills that you need in order to make your business successful. So tell me a little bit about, because, there's this wonderful misnomer, I think, before we transition from the corporate 9 to 5 into entrepreneurship, that we're going to have all kinds of time on our hands. And, we're really going to be able to manage our calendar a little different. So firsthand experience, I mean, farming is not a 9 to 5 job.
No.
Right?
No, it's not. And there is something wonderful about that, because there is a relinquishing of control a little bit around this, like, it is time to harvest, period.
Right.
Harvest. It is time to, cut the plants back, so in a way that's nice. Although you're right. And especially with 3 young kids, there is a certain element of not quite getting it right all the time. And, trying to avoid that, like, I'm failing or I'm not doing what I set out to do, because I myself, I've experienced like a lot of growth mindset changes in the last, 18 months, and has been vital for good mental health in this process.
For sure.
Last night's a great example. So last night we had a lovely event here. It was a wine and cheese tasting. We also had our yoga. We have field yoga 4 times a week here. So lots going on. Had my 3 kids inside and kept having to say, Mommy just needs X more time to finish. And I could see the day coming to a close and me not getting through that list.
Right.
And old corporate Dawn would have just said, like, well, I have to get through the list. It's the list. You get through the list. I said, you know what? You have to put a hard cap on it sometimes.
Right.
Like, lids on. It's not getting done tonight. And the only person
and that's okay.
That's okay. And so I was able to come in and do bedtime and do stories and stuff. And so you just have to be aware of that internal dialogue that you put upon yourself to be all those things. And you're right. When you step into entrepreneurship, you go like, oh, this will be great to manage my calendar. Well,
not so much.
Yeah, that's right. That's my plan, right?
Now, on your website, I've noticed that you've got some wonderful photos. I'm assuming that perhaps some of them are your children holding the lavender flowers. So tell me about how it really is a family affair, right? I mean, you can get them, even though they're young, they're learning all kinds of things about, making connections with the land, meeting new people that obviously arrive on the farm for tours. So how has that changed their perspective on learning, perhaps?
It's amazing to watch. I absolutely love it. It's especially interesting because my daughters, who are 9 and 7, had prior urban experience. We lived in the city. They had city, skills, and they crossed streets, and they, had physical play boundaries that were quite small. Whereas my son, who was, 1.5 when we moved here, will never know anything different. And it's interesting to watch the different comfort levels. Like, my girls are very good about saying, we're going here. Is that okay? Yes. Whereas my son, he lets himself in and out of the house. Like, it's a very interesting thing to watch. It's also really rewarding because it is what we set out to do. I mean, we wanted our kids to have that connection to nature. And they're so comfortable doing things that I still need to think about. And it seems to come second nature to them. And it's wonderful to see them be enthusiastic about, animal care. They love to be part of, obviously, kids and animals. It's like a natural,
Yeah,
it's a
for
natural
sure.
thing. Yeah, you don't have to ask them twice to help with that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's just been, it's such a bonus. But it was a strategic bonus. It was part of what we had hoped.
Part of the plan, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that you mentioned in when I visited your website was that there's this folklore around your land. You also mentioned it in the guest blog. So give us a little bit of insight into that, because, you've given us a little teaser by saying, that sometimes you don't have the whole master plan. You go in with a great idea, and then things kind of evolve and change as time allows it. But tell us a little bit about the folklore, because, you've mentioned you have meditation on the property. Why do you have meditation? What's that all about?
Yeah. So it's an interesting, like all of this, it's an interesting journey. So the farm's called Avalon, which is a name we actually brought with us when we purchased the farm, because especially for my husband, he loves Arthurian legend and history, and for him, this felt like that the Arthurian sort of healing isle of fruit essentially was, there's lots of fruit trees on the property, apples and peaches, and so that's sort of just the toe in the water. And then from there, my own ancestry is Scottish, and our family actually comes from the area in Scotland that has quite a number of stone circles. And so that was something we visited as a family. And this property is just absolutely filled with these giant stones. And so we said, well, as a focal point in the farm, somewhere that feels like a reverent place where we could hold meditation or yoga, or we've had live music, we should pay homage to that. So it's absolutely hilarious when we were asking, folks who have the kind of equipment we needed, could you help us create this structure? I think they thought we were nuts, but actually once they saw it coming together, they were like, this is amazing. And actually needing to feel it, to be there, to sort of feel the fact that it is quite a beating heart of the farm. And it's a beautiful place to just sort of be on the farm. And our yoga and meditation classes are there. There's someone doing bringing their Reiki services. And so, it's a neat container for that kind of experience here.
I love how you've taken family and folklore and nature, and you've kind of combined all of those elements into a business that really seems to speak to your personality too, because, lavender, your Scottish background and lavender kind of go hand in hand. So can you share with us, what was the tipping point? What was the light bulb moment when you and your husband said, we want to sell everything that we have in our urban environment, and we want to go back to find a farm? What was that tipping point?
I think what we felt, it was more of a buildup than like a specific moment. And it was sort of a layered buildup of all of these feelings around family, around connection to nature, around not feeling like what was happening in our work lives was in alignment with like you said, who we were or what we wanted to leave behind in this world. And so the truth is there's been actually many little tipping points that have nudged us in this direction and nudged us towards where we are now. Lots of them, are even other people's great ideas have been moments where we've said, well, yeah, that makes perfect sense. We should 100% do that here.
Yeah, let's collaborate.
Yeah, and that's been a real learning experience too, because both of us are very much sort of, I guess, alpha leaders in our zones. And so like finding the joy in collaboration, in taking those great ideas, and we don't need to feel like we own them. Like they're great ideas, I mean, we have some fabulous young staff that work with us this summer through the Canada Youth Summer Jobs Program, and their fresh perspectives are incredible. Right now we have actually an artist in residence who's a young lady who is working with our picnic table spaces, which are just essentially canvases, and she is just incredible. I mean, these are not ideas that we came up with. We basically said, carte blanche, like make this feel right for people who are visiting and just bring some extra joy to these sort of unpainted spaces. And oh my word, you must follow along on this, because every time I go to the field, I'm just absolutely delighted with what she's doing. So again, releasing that control is a really been a hard for us. Yeah.
Well, that really takes me to, it's a wonderful segue into your 3 words of advice, because I really think that you're exemplifying your 3 words of advice for sure, which are leap, then look. So give our viewing and listening audience a little bit of an insight into why those 3 words are important.
They are so scary to hear.
They are indeed.
They're so scary to hear. And they are definitely not the advice we were given. I would say for lots of us, they are not the advice, or they are not the path we followed in our early careers.
Right.
Especially as an overthinker and an over-researcher. But time and time again, taking a jump and then figuring it out has not just been the only way that I have managed to be where I am in this work now, but it has been an ultimate source of joy. It has added a layer of just remembering, we're just little humans doing our best here. Yeah. We're just trying to do our best, and we don't. And I feel like, especially as women, there's so much pressure for us to do it right,
be perfect,
do it the way we're supposed to within the painted lines. Forget it. Paint your own lines. Paint your own lines, and you'll find people will come to you who want to paint those crazy lines with you. And then it's much more unstoppable when you're a crew.
Well, I really want to thank you, Dawn, for giving us some insight into the Avalon Lavender Farm, because anyone who's doing a staycation or is traveling in Ontario needs to make a stop to sort of see how your farm that started with 100 plants has now grown to 30,000, and how you have a wonderful crew of people who are helping you. And it sounds like some great events throughout the summer holiday season. So we wish you every success as you turn a new page.
Thank you so much, Trish. And thank you so much for, featuring entrepreneurs. It's a special place to live and work. So thank you.
Well, listen, I learned something from every guest. So, and you're no exception. So thank you so much for sharing your insight with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
To you, our viewing and listening audience, I'd like to thank you for joining us in this edition of Keeping It Real, where we introduce you to the person behind the logo. I'm Trish Tonai, founder and host for the series. And if you're interested in sharing your business story, visit our website, shareyourstories.online. Thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to meeting you next time when we share another great idea.